Hey, have you ever followed your passions? We would love to hear from you on Uplift this morning. Come and join us. We've got Drew Kenworthy here today. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Uplift. It's a pleasure to see you here, whether you are alive or if you're catching the replay. Drop us some keys. Let us know how you're going and how you follow your passions, because that's what we're talking about today. We've got an award-winning filmmaker coming to us. I'll introduce him in a second. For now, you know me, co-host, social media coach, an amazing human, lover of life, Sarah Wade. I'm from Perth in Western Australia, and as always, my beautiful co-host coming to us from Calgary in Canada. Welcome, Mr. Thrussell. It's lovely to see you.
It's wonderful to see you, and I love the exuberance that you're exuding today. It's wonderful to see and hear. As Sarah said, my name is Neil Thrussell, and I'm from the warm, balmy city of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We are at +1. Woohoo! And I'm super excited to have my friend and filmmaker Drew Kenworthy on the show again. We had some huge technical issues the very first time he was on, and they appear to be gone. Welcome,
Yes,
Drew.
Yeah, no. Oh, thanks for having me. I'm glad that I don't hear myself, in a kind of an echo chamber. We've got the technical issues ironed out, so that'll be good. It's easier to think when I'm not, having to hear.
Yeah. Makes sense. Hey, I'm wondering if tech issues happen a lot in your industry, and if so, what's your go-to? Like, how do you get around it?
Well, it's just a matter of like being resourceful. And sometimes it's like, a lot of times I'll have in my bag, more than especially audio. I think audio is because what we're talking about anyways, but audio is always seems to be the one thing that I'm always having issues with. So it's so I'll have a lav mic, set, and then a backup audio device, and even another backup audio device just in case, and extra batteries. Sometimes I'll even forget the batteries, but that's at least then I've got something that's because audio is always one thing that kind of makes or breaks a situation when you're dealing with film. So yeah, it's kind of having that kind of prepare ahead of time, and then if all else fails, you pray.
It's funny. I think in a lot of technologies, pray sometimes is the answer.
Yeah,
because you have no idea where these little gremlins show up from, but they're there.
Sometimes you just need someone with a Midas touch. I don't know about you, but I've had my fair share of tech issues in the past, and you'll be trying all the things for all the time, and then one person will walk in the room and they'll press one or two buttons, and then big smile, they've got it done, and you're like, I did all that too. And again, I'm wondering if you guys can relate. Is it just a me thing, or is this a worldwide phenomenon? We need that Midas touch person in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So, Drew, I have a question. So when you came out of the womb, did you come out with the great big Betamax camera that you knew that this is what you wanted to do, or was it just something that slowly evolved over life for you?
Well, sure. I mean, I always had kind of the love for drama, and then I think that's one of those things. I grew up in that age where, you know, you had like the home movie camera was like, you know, just this phenomenon, right? And of course we had one. We had, you know, my dad had like, you know, like the you know, 8mm film, whatever, and then of course we had like, you know, one of those, you know, and I took, like, we would take it and we would just like go in the basement on a Sunday afternoon and just do like just stupid movies and stuff like that, me and my brothers. And you know, it's just something that we'd do, like, you know, in this day and age, like in YouTube, that's, I guess, what I probably would have had a YouTube channel or something. But it's like, you know, it was just, obviously there wasn't an audience, but it didn't matter because we were just, you know, doing it, having fun, and you know, making our own movies kind of thing. And you know, it's funny to look back on, you know, those home videos that I had. And you know, and we'd even do stupid things like, you know, just like on vacation jumping off the diving board, and then I would like take and edit it, and I'm talking like the VHS cassette, and I would re-record it and like make edits. And so back then, like by the time because every time you recorded it would downgrade, but I didn't care. I would still make this like montage edit, and like it was just like, it's just things that I just always kind of loved doing. You know, that was like kind of the fun. Yeah.
So you've got blackmail, or had blackmail material for when your brothers were getting married.
Oh yeah, pretty much.
And for your brother's children, when you say, you know, your uncle did something crazy.
Yeah. Although I don't know if we have every single thing that we recorded either, but yeah, some of it is rather embarrassing for sure. Yeah.
But it was
Gotta love those things that are that embarrassing bit of the family. I can hold on to this, or I could put it out there. You know, which would you prefer? I've got a lawn that needs mowing. How's Thursday work for you? Is that how it works in your side of the world, or
how to log it, or?
Yeah, I was just being cheeky, like, you know, with your family. You know, I've got a little bit of footage here. I could release it. You know, it's from the 80s. You know, I spent a bit of time back then with my cassette tape, making it just the perfect amount of embarrassing. Shall we release it, or would you like to come and shovel my snow?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think yeah, it's kind of like we have enough dirt on each other that it's kind of like we just like, you know, it's just a wash, and so we're just gonna stay. You know, I think at that level is sort of, yeah, we're good.
So so you said you loved being in drama, in that. So was it always that you envisioned yourself behind the camera, or involved in technology, or did you start out having a desire to be in front of the camera, or was that completely not in your purview?
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I was pretty like, it's funny because like I'm kind of one of those that's like, you know, in person sort of more like in the background. I'm introvert a little bit, but if I go on the stage, then I'm a performer. And you know, I love doing that, but I also love kind of, you know, stepping in the background and or being, you know, being the one filming. So I kind of have a desire for either. But yeah, when I was younger, I kind of had this thing thinking I'd love to be an actor, I'd love to get into film, you know, and I took the radio route. I even thought I might be like a radio announcer, but instead I ended up, you know, behind the scenes writing commercials on the radio, that kind of thing, right? So it kind of, you know, it like kind of my skills and of course my desire for just having a family life sort of dictated that a little bit more, because, you know, it's like it's a little bit easier to just kind of meld that into a good, like, you know, something that fits, you know, a lifestyle, like where I can like still have family and still enjoy life and not, you know, not be sort of like in the spotlight and, you know, that kind of thing, right? So
you're preaching to the choir here. I hear you. I exited high school and I was signed up for recording engineer. I had done my training, and then I got offered my first job, and it was like, what do you mean I have to apprentice? I didn't do all my homework on what was really required. What do you mean I have to work nights for like 2 years, 3 years before I can get into a morning or in an evening shift.
Yeah.
And then I was in the relationship with my wife, well, to be wife at the time. So it was like, that does not bode well for long-term relationships. So
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is like, like there's that sort of idea, like, you can still follow your passions alongside like what might feel like, oh, this isn't quite as glamorous of a life, but you can still follow your passions. Like for me, I took the radio career route, but then on the side, like I kept doing video work, and then it just sort of grew my video business. I did a lot of wedding films, and in so doing, I sort of like, I took the approach of like, well, these wedding films, it's already like an idea of this is a story, and it kind of just made it easy to really turn it into something that was a film in a sense, instead of just like a boring, cheesy wedding film. You're telling the story of two individuals in love with each other. It can be a captivating story, and so it's kind of like, that desire for being in film or being a filmmaker just kind of like came alive for me in a different way, and I sort of grew into that a lot. So that's sort of, one of the things that I think is really important for us to grab onto, that we don't have to lose that passion in life. Depending on wherever we are in life, we can still live that passion and make what we're doing uplifting and thrive on that.
absolutely. And it's a common, both Sarah and I are coaches, and it's a common tool or a way to get people is to still hold on to your passion and keep working it, keep inspiring, keep developing in those tools, and till your life is at such a point that you can make it a full time. And maybe it takes 20 years, maybe it takes 30 years. It took me to retire to become a full-time author. So what the heck?
Yeah.
And it can happen for some people faster than others, Let's compare yourself only to you, If you're comparing yourself to other people who are in a different situation to you, it's not fair. Even the playing fields, compare yourself to the you were earlier this morning, the you were yesterday. Figure out the you you're going to be today. If you're going to go for your passions, absolutely 100% go for it. And I don't know about you guys, but I know there's days that I have passions and I want to do something, but I don't have the time for it. Can you guys relate? But if you think about it and you're actually, no, I'll get back to it later, making it part of your daily thought process, it doesn't feel like doesn't feel like your passions are like, out there at arm's reach anymore. There's like tips of the finger, palm of your hand. It's all coming together. You might not necessarily be working on it that day, but it's in your mind. You've not forgotten and packed away your boxes and go, okay, passions, over here you go. I've got to take care of my family right now, or I've got to take care of this and that. And wonder if anyone else feels like that. Can you guys relate?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
like, guys, if you're watching this live, I can see there's a few people live. What are your passions? Let us know. Obviously, we've got an author here. We've got a filmmaker here. We've got a Reels coach here. I want to hear about you. We want to hear about you. Get involved in the conversation. If you've got any questions for any of us, drop us some letters.
So you start, by the sounds of it, you started in radio. Well, but you're an award-winning. You've submitted to film festivals. I've seen one of your movies, Living the Warrior Code. How did that transition from radio to video?
Well, I think I've got a couple of slides I can kind of draw into like where that came about. Yeah, so I mean, this is sort of my radio career. I spent a lot of time with some, and that's, that was fun for me. I loved radio. And being in, copywriting as creative writer. There's lots of fun things you could do with that. And it was great, just the people we worked with, and, it was fun. And like I said, I had a side hustle, basically, of doing videos. And that was like, just all of the things that just a regular videographer would do. And I hadn't really got into anything necessarily that you would call documentary filmmaking or anything like that. But like what I alluded to with wedding videography is really recognizing there's a story there. And that prepared me for a few like other things, because like not only is there a story, but it's also on the fly. So you really had to be ready for anything. And the story writes itself. Like you can basically anticipate a lot of things. At least that's what I liked about wedding filming. It was, it's like you knew that, okay, the bride's going to come down the aisle, the groom's going to have a reaction. Those are the things I need to get, right? And those are the things that, are important, whatever, right? So like all of those things, but then you're also telling a story along the way. And that really prepared me for documentary filmmaking. So that was like really what drew me into that, and that's just the businesses that I had. I had sort of like, 2 brands. But this is what I wanted to kind of talk about is this brought me into doing some exciting projects in the corporate world, and the first one was for my friend and client 𝗨𝗪𝗟𝗧, and I'd done a lot of work for him, and he wanted to do something, kind of different, a documentary about some of the individuals that were working out in his gym. And so I'd done a lot of fitness, type stuff. And I loved that idea because, fitness is like one of those things where you can really tell a story of change, which is what the documentary was. And it really, basically tells the story of the human element of the process of, trying to get from one point to another, and making those positive changes in your life to get to the goals of living healthier, being better at what you're doing, and that kind of thing. And so I did that documentary, and it was about 30-minute documentary. It was great. And then it kind of led me into another contact with 𝗨𝗟𝗟𝗏 Originals, which is a health products company here in Red Deer. And I did a documentary for them. And so it was kind of like one of these, just stepping stones, right? Where you're just basically what I'm saying, I guess, where it's like the evolution of, you do projects, you do well at them, kind of like gets you to the next one. And then, so of course, each one kind of lifted me to the next area. And then this was a really cool project, new opportunities. Basically, I guess I put that like this is my full-time job, as I was hired on at Peavey Mart. That's where I work. But I also at the same time started a project with my friend and client, Scott McDermott. And this is a project that took like 3 or 4 years to complete. And it was Living the Warrior Code. And it was like seriously and like incredible life-changing experience for me, for him too, right? For anybody that was involved in the project, really. So basically, like, that's where I think when I guess I'll sort of like compress it down so that we can get back to, the question. But this is where, because you only just asked, like, how did you get there? But that's kind of where I was at, is just allowing those opportunities to get me to the next step. I didn't wake up one day thinking I want to be a documentary filmmaker one day. I knew, like, I'd always wanted to do film and stuff like that. And really the thing with those projects, it really made me recognize how much I loved documentary filmmaking. I hadn't necessarily thought about it, in that sense. But as I progressed through these projects, I really came to love the process of finding out a story and telling it, and pulling out really, I guess, the inspiration, of the individuals, like of the things that, that sometimes, like, I mean, the first couple projects, it was sort of, like selling a product or the gym, but also telling the story of the individuals, which is what helps to sell it. I don't, in the corporate sense, that's really important because, even businesses have a story behind it, and it makes such a difference especially when you're putting video online. And this is what can apply to a lot of people, because like everybody likes to see videos, whether you're posting just a short reel, if it doesn't have a story element or something that kind of inspires, people are just going to scroll past it. But that's really what you're trying to look for, is drive home that message of inspiration. What is it that you want to tell them, and this process, I that just pulled the passion out, and really seeing and coming to terms with this idea of like really getting down to what I love. And that's, telling the story of inspiration for, basically the human element of what's inside us, so we can be better and what we can become.
So what Drew didn't share is that we had Scott McDermott on, who was, for lack of a better term, the star, or the focus of the documentary, because in the final documentary, there's many stars in the show and in the documentary, and some of them are not. They're the life-saving elements. They're the people that actually saved Scott's life. And because within the documentary, our friend fell off of his bike, slipped off of his bike at 70 kilometers an hour, and tumbled into a guardrail at 70 kilometers an hour. And that was in 2015. And had Scott completed the race, the documentary that Drew was creating would be far different than the one that he actually got to complete.
Yeah, that's right. What we had talked about, me and Scott, was let's do a really cool documentary about an average guy completing this really hard race, which is really a hard race. It's like, it's a 3-day race that, goes around the island of Hawaii. And also the story of Ultraman, which is like a really tight-knit group of people, around this race. It was just a different thing than like an Ironman or something like that. It's very, very intimate. And what we were going to do is just tell that story, but what we really ended up with was something different, and it really told the story in a different way than what I'd ever imagined. So
I'm just going to play just a couple, like 30, 40 seconds of the original trailer that you created.
So good to be back. I kind of teared up a little bit getting off the plane and smelling that warm Hawaiian air, seeing the palm trees. The last time I was here, things didn't go so well.
Yeah, Scotty just went down right in front of me, probably doing 60, 70K an hour.
It just shocks you to the core. I didn't think he was going to, and you're just like, what am I even looking at here?
When we got him here, I don't think the people that saw him realized how badly injured he was.
When he first came in, it was hard to think of him going back to triathlon, let alone going back to Ultraman.
And I get emotional just watching the trailer every time, because we both, I'll speak for myself. I loved Scotty because he's a wonderful, passionate human being. And to know that we were this close to losing him. And the only I can say this easier now. The only bonus is if we lost him, at least we lost him because he was doing something that he was so passionate about, and that he was doing what he loved. And that was, if you're going to go, you might as well go doing what you love.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, but the fact that he survived, even as it was, his passion, or like the thing that is just like, he lives for it. So that was, I think, part of what you get, is seeing the drive that he had to get to go back to where he wanted, or where he needed to be, was back and do that. That's incredible, amazing thing, in recognizing how far gone he was. Like, most people would just given up, but not Scott. You know, and so I think that's the inspiration in itself. Because sometimes we think like, oh well, I just can't. It's too impossible right now in my life to get there. You know, this goal that I want, but this is something that you can apply and say, well, look, if he could do that, then I can too.
And this is where I say kudos to you, because out of the hundreds of feet and the hours of tape, in an hour and 20 minutes, you boiled the essence down of 2 races and created this heartwarming, inspirational documentary that shows the depth that a person is willing to go. Like, you caught and brought out Scotty. You caught the best and the worst of Scotty, and it was beautiful. And that's your skill. That wasn't Scotty or I or somebody else. It was your skill that was able to do that. Yeah, you had tons of footage and all that, but it was your skill that actually did that. And it's apparent that you loved, well, besides loving Scotty, you loved what you were doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's, when you say it's hard for you to watch it, it was hard for me to edit it. 'Cause the thing is, like, it was, and even every process of, like, just filming it, like I had to, come to the, because you see, like, I'm there. At least I arrived on the scene just shortly after he had crashed. Thankfully I wasn't right, there. That would have been quite a lot different, but I think it's just where I needed to be. But that in itself was like devastating, because I'm like, oh, this is somebody here. Somebody's crashed. I gotta, I should take some footage of this. And then as I get closer, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Scott. And it just became so real, and everything about it, in all that process, made it like so emotional. Like, I remember, I like, that's the thing. I put my heart and soul into this film, because it was like, it was my buddy that, like, that went down, and then it's his story of the comeback, and is just so amazing. And just, I think it's just such a great story, because like, all, like, and what you alluded to, the guys that came, Peter and Adam, such amazing guys, but the bond that they have now is incredible, and Lyle was there every minute with Scott, from the time he crashed, all through that, because Hillary, his wife, had to stay with Caden, and like, there's so many elements, and then everybody, and I guess all of these things that added up in the Ultraman family. Everybody was just like, it was just an emotional, touching story, even filming it, because the next day I'm like filming the other athletes finishing their race, and they're all not, like, they're focused on their own, but as soon as they see me, like, how's Scotty doing? How's he doing? Like, and I caught that in the film, and it's like those are the things, like, I have to put this in. I have to find a way to put this in. How do I tell this whole story? And so I had to kind of map it out, like, what's the best way to do this, and then piece it together in a way that sort of told the same emotion that I had. So that's kind of like, a lot of what went into it.
And it shows, for me, it shows a dedication to your passion, to your craft, to that you were here for a job. You were concerned about Scotty because he's your buddy, he's your friend, but you knew that in order to tell the story to its fullest extent, you still needed to do something in spite your pain, your anguish, your angst, whatever you were going through, the emotion, you still needed to get the next piece of footage. And some of it was some pretty incredible Hawaiian scenery.
Thanks. Yeah. No, that was the bonus of being in Hawaii, and definitely. That was one of the reasons why I was late showing up, like I was behind, so it was kind of like one of those, I was like, oh no, I got to catch up to him. Because it's just incredible there. But what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. But the thing that that's important in all of it is, I guess, like we talked about, like only with Scott, is really like what we had kind of agreed on is we're getting all the footage, we're getting every aspect of it, good or bad, like, because it, and it was not ever expected it would be like this, but
No,
it was one of those things where I knew I wouldn't stop filming. I pretty much knew that I can't stop. The story needs to continue being told, even though this is really hard and things have gone really far south. I still had to, because I knew this is what Scott would want. I knew Scott would want that stuff still recorded, still done, and that's why it's, like it's the way it is, because it's still, needed to film the raw.
And is it that authenticity that you guys think that people connect with, or that authenticity through that storytelling that you created?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because here's a link to Living the Warrior Code. Drew and Scotty would love it if you would go and watch it. You can. There's a place on the website if you want to make a donation. They would love that too as well. And if you don't, that's okay too. But check it out. Living the Warrior Code is a beautiful, I think is a beautiful film. But check it out. And I'm going to throw up a couple ways that you can get a hold of Drew. So check out the movie, and then let Drew know how much you loved it. And because I'm pretty sure, I'm biased, but I'm pretty sure you're going to love it.
Yeah,
I think it's really curious because as Neil mentioned, we did have Scott on the show. It was about 1.5 years ago when he came on, and to hear both sides of the story, you hear his passion, his drive, his comeback, and then obviously you're sharing, the need in the moment to capture it all, to be authentic, and realistically, I'm sure you went in there with some sort of storyboard, like you did with your weddings in the past. You probably had a plan of action that you and Scott went through to go then to filming all that raw stuff and cutting and editing and changing that story of inspiration that comes through in the story in that film. Was there a time where you sort of, I'm tapping out, or were you just in there, like you just knew you had to do it for Scott?
Yeah, I was never like, I was so involved in that moment. Like that was like, we went, I filmed all the way through that whole process. And then like, I remember even, he crashed, it's a 3-day race. So he crashed on day 2. And then at the end, like there was so much going on. We filmed we filmed like Doug, one of our like he rode the bike, you know, across the finish line at the end of day 2, just in honor of him. And then there was footage there, and really then we didn't really know. We just kind of like, I don't know. I had like maybe 4 hours of sleep that night because we drove back to, you know, like we just kind of like crashed and then came and filmed the rest of that stuff. And then like it was just go, I guess. And then it was like, so yeah, there was no real any option to tap out. Like I said, there was like, I just knew I couldn't stop filming. And then at the end, when like all of the athletes had come in at the end of the day on day 3, it was just this beautiful scene. And it's kind of like one of those, you probably wouldn't know, but I know it because it's at the end of the day and it's sunset on that beach. And I just remember it because I just sunk into that sand and just had my moment of release. Like it was just like it's this is done, but like I still, it was my moment. Like the whole thing wasn't done. I still didn't know what was you know, what situation Scott was in. Still my prayers and my heart was with him, but it was just my moment of just like sinking and release. And then you know, I guess if there was any moment of like feeling to tap out was sort of like maybe in that, you know, 3 years in the middle between him and, you know, like there was times where I felt like, oh, can I really, you know, keep going with this project? And, you know, so I had some of those moments, but me and Scott kind of talked each other through that, you know, and that kind of thing. But, you know, I'm so glad that we just kept going with it, that Scott, you know, still filmed some of those elements of his comeback. Like, you know, there were some gaps in there, you can tell in the film, but I think that was needed because it wasn't like, you can't get everything. And you still need to see like, but there was still that process. Like he's, you know, he comes from like really like brain injury, like cracked his clavicle. Like his whole arm was like broke. Like he was just shattered. He was in pieces. And yet he still worked his way back up 3 years later. Like that's incredible. That's amazing to me. You know, 3 years that we were all ready and going back to Hawaii for him to finish that race. And then not only that, like there were moments in that race where we were like, is he going to make it? You know, it was like, and then I'm like, if he doesn't, what is that going to mean? Is this going to be now like a 6-year project or what? Like, but,
So,
yeah.
So what was it like? So you entered into the New York Film Festival. What was it like to be in the New York Film Festival and to be in, like, it's prestigious. What was it like for that?
Oh, that was you know, that was pretty fun. Like, it's just like this. Yeah, we just felt like we're going, you know, like we're going to like the big times. It wasn't like, you know, I think it's still a festival, you know, and whatnot. And it was really kind of neat, you know. I found that was like more disconnected. And actually I enjoyed the film festivals. It's kind of interesting to think that way, but I actually enjoyed the film festivals closer to home, like the Central Alberta Film Festival, because that's my home. I felt really like connected to that because it was like, you know, I was very welcomed, like, you know, like where, like you're honored, I guess, as a local filmmaker at a film festival in your own area quite a little bit more, you know, because that's what these festivals are for. Like, you know, these littler festivals, I wouldn't say littler necessarily, because Central Alberta Film Festival, like, this is an amazing job at, like, you know, just pumping it up, like making it feel like the Oscars, or, you know, on a little like lower level, but really like the awards are still like, you know, they do it nice, you know, and so you do feel like honored. And it's just nice as a filmmaker to have, like, because you put all that like I say, blood, sweat, and tears into this documentary. And not just me, but Scott, because like, yeah, I put my time into it, but he broke himself in order to like literally, and then pushed and pushed to get all the way there. For both of us, that was just, that's just incredible. And so any accolade that comes along the way just feels like incredible, like amazing.
So emotionally, what was it?
Too, right?
Yeah, sorry. Emotionally, what was it like the very first time you saw this on the big screen? I suspect that was in Sylvan Lake at the Landmark Cinema. What was it like? Because I was there, and I thought, I was just like, holy, insert shit, bang, bang, exclamation, all these swear words, like, wow, was that ever good? And I was just like, Drew, you're amazing. So what was it like for you and your family to see this 4 years plus work in front of there?
I'd say that, like it was definitely a real high point for me, especially because, it's people I know, people are supporting me, supporting Scott, like, all of these things. And it was a packed theater, and they were all there to support us. And that was incredible. And not only that, I guess, like, like I guess for me, I was so involved in it and just like feeling like, oh, how's it going to be received? It's kind of like that moment of like, oh, I hope everybody likes it. Scott hadn't even seen it either. So for that was also like a little nervous too. Like, like, cause Scott had, like, I was like, okay, hope he likes it too. But, so really that was like a high moment, but I was like, didn't really come down from that until like, the kind of like the day or two after, when I read, more like the messages and stuff like that, people that reached out or put like, put the message, we'd asked for feedback and those kind of things. And, I really like had like kind of, more of a tearful moment there when I'm like, this is something like, it's not just a passion project, but wow, like this, the feedback was, this is life-changing. This is giving people inspiration. Like, it's like, because Scott did this, well, now I want to do, my fitness, goal or whatever. Like these things are like, well, that's what makes it worth it for me. Like it's not necessarily accolades, but it's like, what, this is something that's going to improve someone else's life. That's even better, right? Like that's what's worth it.
And I hear you, and and the amazing part is what it started out may have touched people's heart and may have, but what you ended up, because of Scott crashing, you guys were able to tap into a much deeper emotion. So for the next version of this, what else do we need Scott to do?
Well, yeah, no, I don't think there's a sequel coming. I mean, if he wants to, and I think he'll eventually go back. I know that's part of his thing. Like, I mean, maybe I'd, I'd love to go back, but might just only as a crew member or something, or just as a fan saying, "Go Scott," But like, but yeah, I think it's there's lots you can take from that. I think this was a good process as far as learning. Like I say, with these stepping stones, it's kind of like it helps me to get to the next idea or project. And this took a lot out of me. So I think like for a couple of years, I was like, you know what, I need a hiatus. I'm gonna just I'm just gonna I think I'm just gonna ride this out. I was happy to just kind of like do the film festival thing, because that was a new experience, and understanding and knowing how to do the film festival and then get it. And then music licensing was a bit of a challenge, because we were like, okay, well, we've licensed it for film festivals, but then you have to like get a different level of music licensing in order to put it onto YouTube or another streaming service. And so anyways, we did a theater run, just that we just got creative, because in COVID it was like theaters were all shut down, and so Scott had this. Scott and I think Darren had this great idea. They're like, okay, let's just throw it in the theaters, and so we kind of like we just did that and raised money, and got that licensed for YouTube, and so now that's where it sits. And so this is, like I say, it's a good experience because now I kind of know the process of, not just making the documentary, but the film festival thing now. And, and so now it's like, I'm about ready to take on another project and do something else. And now it's like, then I think I kind of like know more that I can.
Very fortuitous. If you want a project and you think, you can reach Drew on Facebook. You can reach Drew on Facebook in his group, or you can reach out to him on LinkedIn. And he'd probably love to discuss your next documentary with him. And hopefully it doesn't involve anybody in large-scale bike crashes and any heartfelt things like this. So I'm thinking you're looking for a little less heartfelt in that particular way.
Yeah, probably.
It can still be emotional and it can still be heartstringing, but I think we've got one crash is enough. So, Sarah, you don't have your slide. I was going to say, oh no.
It has disappeared.
I guess
That's
you have
right,
to
I'll find it again.
Okay.
We might have to talk about you, Mr. Thrussell.
Okay. So, as everyone, well, not everyone, for those that don't know, that I'm an author, and I like to use, and I love to use writing as the tool to inspire you and not to inspire you, but to coax out of you what it is that you want out of life. Writing is just a medium. Drew is using video. Sarah is using video and through reels. I'm using the written word. And one of the tools is gratitude. And I believe when we're grateful, even for the small things, the clean water that we can brush our teeth with, a good toothbrush, loving, compassionate friends, beautiful conversations, internet that's stable and the sound is good, life is much easier to live and a joy to be with. So I'm inviting you to check out my and sign up and get a PDF of my free gratitude journal. Sarah.
Great move. And to add to that too, I'm sure you and other viewers know that when you practice gratitude, it is little, once or 3 times a day, 3 weeks later, your life can completely change. It's not just an airy-fairy thing. It actually happens. The science is there to back you up. So I highly recommend you reach out and connect with this particular journal of Neil's or get to feeling that gratitude within yourself. Yeah. As for me, I started doing reels actually after my bout of COVID last year. I wanted to get creative. I couldn't do my usual thing. I was dragging my feet because my brain was blur, my body was blur. So I started having a play with something that I didn't really have much of a clue about, to be honest. I was a novice when it came to reels. So I started thinking about things like metaphors and, how can I bring a story through visuals? And it was a beautiful thing for me to get over my tech issues and to really, hey, I've got this, I'm not going to stick with that old program of I can't do it. I can press the on and off button and I can type. No, guys, if you're in that situation and you feel like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, know that you can and just start doing that thing that you feel passionate about. For me at the moment, my daughter and I were out driving and we know that, hey, I am passionate about this. And my daughter will say, hey, Mummy, we should film this. So we pull over and we'll have a look at the bridge and we'll take footage of a bridge. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to share stories, whether they are long films or in reels, in a way that connects with somebody on a personal level. If you'd like to come and join me, you are most welcome to. I'm doing a free Reels challenge at the end of the month. Let me know. We'll contact you with details. But in the meantime, know that there are ways that you can become more visible online and really go from being seen one way to be seen in more ways and attracting your ideal client. And I think that's a bit like what Drew's done, really, isn't it? You know, you've spoken about going from like your journey from being in all sorts of different places in life, and you're really sharing that story of trust and growth. And I'm curious where your next project will go. Are you going to be like filming video clips for famous musicians, or are you going to go back with the documentary? Like, do you have an idea where your momentum's going to go taking you next time?
Well, I mean, like I have my day job, and I get to do I get to do sort of those things that I, sort of like pull my passion out. I mean, there's obviously like training that's, pretty drab and just like mundane and that kind of thing. But I mean, it's always, fulfilling those things, like, pulling the creativeness out and doing extra little things like that. But as far as like the side projects, yeah, I mean, documentary filmmaking is kind of like one of those, it's my thing. I feel like I've got, a passion for it, and I can make it work. I mean, would I do a short film? If, like maybe I could see myself, maybe pulling something like that together too. But yeah, I've got sort of like, an idea of a documentary, coming up here in the next year. Like at least I've hoping to like pull that together, doing some things with, the ideas like with food security and urban farming and that kind of thing, like just, sort of pulling that, passion, and it sort of aligns a little bit with what I do at work. 𝗨𝗟𝗟𝗡 is a, is an ag type business too, like, so I deal with a lot of those types of things and whatnot. So yeah, I'm hoping that'll, pan out and work. So, and I guess if anything else lands on my plate, well, yeah, I look at that too. But yeah, it's sort of like I can only take certain things on at a time because I don't want to overload my plate. I still like my family life to be manageable. The balance.
So Drew has a large family, and when your family leaves, who are you going to get to fill in on some of your commercials that you've done for 𝗨𝗟𝗟𝗡?
I don't know. Yeah, I do use my kids sometimes for stuff like that, and yeah.
And to me, I've viewed a couple. I think one of the commercials, and it's like, oh, they look like they're having a great time. Like it's take your kids to work day, and it's like it looks like they had a great time.
Yeah. Sometimes I get to do that, or I'll think about things that I can put or implement in. But yeah, that's also sometimes just like doing little things like that I can put on. I'm trying to, like, because I do have a YouTube channel as well, and I like to grow that, but it's also, that takes time too. But I include my kids sometimes on that as well. But yeah, and I guess it's kind of like, they are pretty used to that. They get to like, they get to know, oh yeah, dad's doing this, sort of like, they're just.
Yeah, but that's part of what you alluded to at the beginning, is bringing your passions along within your everyday life. Don't forget about your passions. Keep including them in as wherever you are in you're done your day job and whatever. Just mixing and including your passions with whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that I had to kind of really be aware of, especially during the pandemic. I feel like there was too many projects that kind of were thrown on it, like work wise, that it was like, okay, here's a Zoom video, edit it, Teams video, edit it. And it's just like, just no quality. And, so that kind of really became like, how do I put passion in that? It was really tough. So just kind of like, and I think I fell into that where it was like, for a while there, I was like, I actually realized I haven't actually taken my camera out and done anything, and that was like, like I'm like thinking like, wow, this is not good, because really as a filmmaker, as a creative, you just need to do that. You just need to, even if the job doesn't require it, you just need to get out and shoot something, and so whatever that is, if it's, if you like to write, you just need to take a pen and write something, like, and just do that, because that exercise will drive you to be inspired to do the next thing and be creative, right? Like, and even just the process of getting up out of your space in your, like, in the office, especially when we were just locked in, I just felt like, yeah, getting out, and that is something that's just so crucial to your mental health and crucial to that creative process that gets me, oh yeah, this is what I love to do. This is what I aim to thrive on, because that's what keeps you motivated to carry on to the next thing and be something better, right? So
Yeah. I can't believe that we are almost at an hour. How is this possible? To me, it only means that I've been thoroughly enjoying the conversation and been completely engrossed and engaged in it. And unfortunately, we need to bring this share to a close. So as we wrap it up for this episode of the Uplift Show, I ask you to take a chance, get out of your comfort zone, and find and live your passions. If you don't know what it is, go and find out. If you know what it is, as Drew had previously mentioned, pick up the camera, pick up the pen, pick up whatever it is, and go out and just do it. Find the time somehow. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our viewers before we take off for this week?
Yeah, just, I guess that was, I think, a good thing to end on. Just recognizing that, yeah, you don't want to lose the passion. Keep doing the things that you love. Like, I'll say, like not only through COVID, that was a good example, but when I went through my divorce, and it's interesting because the time when Scott was going through his comeback, I was going through my dark times of my divorce, and I went through this, like, time where it just felt like I couldn't do anything, but I had a project that I had to do for a dance studio, and there was a bunch of videos, and I remember I just kind of like, I really felt like, how am I going to do this? Like it, like, cause I was just in this place where, like, so much hard times. And the one thing I guess I never talked about, but running is one of the things that, like, with my own fitness, that was one of the things that got me through that and helped me, lift me, get me through, and just have something that I could do in my own space that I could love me and be feeling good about myself. And then to get back to the project, it was actually just, forcing myself to be out there and running and doing the things that I needed to do. And then that kind of got me to the point, like, okay, I got to do this. And sitting down and editing and getting, like, and actually creating and making something, and I did well. I did, like, and I did good on that, like of course the client loved it, and kind of like, so it was just a matter of, like, sometimes we can let that negative voice tell us, you're not good enough. You can't do this, you know, especially in times when you're just downtrodden. If you can look to God and look, you know, to the things that you are passionate about that can lift you, with your, you know, all of those elements in that moment. That was like one of those things, like just doing the process of being creative again made me like, lifted me up and like made me more confident and build, like having the ability to be able to go and just get back into the groove. And it kind of like, that was one of the things that just like helped me along the way. So if I can say anything to that, is that sometimes, I guess, when we're in that dark place, it's just the process of doing what you can do to gain your own confidence. Sometimes it's like you just have to push through, and I guess, like in my case, that being able to sit back and say, oh yeah, I'm back, I am here, and I can do this, that I'm worth it, you know, like you all are worth it. You can do something. We each have skills, we each have talents. We can be better, and we can look to others. We can also inspire and help others. We all have inspiring stories too, you know. So like I think, you know, like that's the thing, like if I got through that little lull, and then a couple of years later I created an amazing documentary that like was award-winning, that went on to like I said, sitting back and hearing the feedback and seeing that people are inspired by this, wanted to do things with their own lives and reach fitness goals, whatever, it is all worth it. And we can all contribute. We can all be something more than what we are. We just have to try. We just have to get to it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Heartfelt, if I've ever heard anything heartfelt, was that right there. Beautiful share, Drew. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your journey and part of Scott's. Appreciate you. Hey, before we wrap this up, I want to set you a challenge, guys. Go and ask your family what they feel is inspiring about you. I wonder if it's your passions, or if it's your tenacity, or something else. At Uplift, we'd love to know. We'd love you to go out there and create those uplifting conversations that truly set your heart on fire and inspire each other. From our heart to yours, we look forward to seeing you next fortnight and catching up then. Take care. Design the life you desire. You are so worth it.